Hello everyone, how are you doing? I hope everyone is doing good. So, welcome to another chapter. We are beginning with the second chapter, that is reproduction in animals. More specifically, we are going to do reproduction in humans in this chapter. So, let's begin with the second chapter. It's very important and it is relatively a very lengthy chapter also. But every topic in this chapter is going to be very important with respect to exam point of view also. Okay, so let's begin. So before we begin with the first topic of the chapter, let's recall some of the topics that we have studied in lower standards. So can you tell me, can you make a note of it and can you answer these questions? What are the common modes of reproduction in unicellular organism? You have been studying this since secondary, and then in 11th also we covered this. How these unicellular organisms like Euglena, amoeba, and paramecium, how do they reproduce? Yes, so giving you half a minute, you can pause the video and try to recollect and answer this. So Euglena, amoeba, paramecium, they carry out reproduction. Basically, they just simply do what? They simply do binary fission. Yes, they do binary fission. Binary means what? Uh, the parent cell undergoes division. So one cell, that is a one parent cell, divides and it becomes two daughter cells. Fission is nothing but division. Yes. Can you tell me what type of asexual reproduction occurs in Hydra? Pause the video for half a minute and just try to recollect. And then here you go. Hydra shows reproduction, wherein asexual reproduction will happen because there are certain animals which will reproduce asexually, that is only one parent will be involved. So Hydra is among them, and they will reproduce by budding. Yes, they will reproduce by budding. For example, you have yeast also. They reproduce by producing buds. Similarly, Hydra will outgrow when it is developed and mature. It will outgrow into a bud, and then the bud will start growing. When the bud is matured, it will detach from the parent's body and it will then start growing as an independent Hydra. Okay. So, what are the different methods of reproduction in animals? So we know binary fission, we know budding. Then in the first chapter, that is reproduction in plants, we also saw the method of regeneration, then the method of fragmentation. Okay. So similarly, in animals also, like you have planaria, they reproduce through regeneration. If you cut one portion of the planaria, it will start regrowing that particular portion. Let's say if you cut the head portion or you cut the tail portion, so it will regenerate automatically. Then another type of reproduction, different method is sexual reproduction. Yes, major categories are asexual and sexual. In asexual, you have many types like binary, budding, regeneration or fragmentation. Okay, then gemule formation, that is what we are going to see in the next slide. And another major category of reproduction in animals is through sexual reproduction. That is going to be our focus in this chapter. Okay, only the initial introductory part, just 2 paragraphs, consists of asexual reproduction. So that 2 examples we will see, which is there in your textbook, which is there in your syllabus, and then the chapter mostly begins with the sexual reproduction in humans. Okay, so let's move on to the first part, the introductory part of the your reproduction in animals. So in this video, we are going to do asexual reproduction in animals, and we will also cover the introductory part of the human male reproductive system. This is chapter 2nd in Maharashtra board and chapter 3 in CBSE. Okay, so we are going in the flow only. So let's begin with the asexual reproduction in animals. So you can see over here a picture of a sponge, and these are the spores, which are the actual the gametes which will be responsible for reproduction. Okay, since it is asexual, so only one parent will be involved. Okay, so here no meiosis, no gamete formation, no fusion, no fertilization, nothing like this will be involved. We talk about meiotic division, gamete formation, fusion only when there is sexual reproduction happening. That is, two parents are involved in it. Yes, so you are very much familiar with this basic concept. You have been studying this since school days. So you should be very clear with this concept. Whenever we talk about asexual reproduction, only mitotic division will happen. The parent cell will give rise to daughter cells, which will be exactly similar to the parent cell in case of structure and also in case of the genetic makeup of the daughter cells, because it is coming from the same parent. So it will be mostly, remember, we also discussed this term in the previous chapter, clones. Okay, so they will mostly be what termed as clones, exact Xerox copies. Like you do a Xerox of any document, so it is exactly the same. Yeah, so similarly when we talk about asexual reproduction, so the progeny or the daughter cells that are produced, that are reproduced, they will be genetically identical to the parent. Okay, and the parent is only one, so there will be no genetic variation. So concept of evolution, variation, that will not come into picture when we are talking about asexual reproduction. So these progeny or the produced newborns or new individuals will also be termed as clones. Very, very important. Okay. So this is another example in sponges, in marine sponges basically. So in 11th standard we covered the phylum of sponge. Yes, when we were doing kingdom Animalia. So gemule is the part through which they will reproduce. It is like a bud only. Okay, it is like a bud only. So a bud, you can see in hydra also, like this is the mature hydra, parent hydra, and then when it decides, when it is ready to undergo reproduction, then it will start growing a bud. Even in plants also, when they are growing and maturing, so they also produce bud. Okay, and then the bud will transform into a flower, and then the flower, we saw everything from the flower to the journey of the fruit in the first chapter, the reproduction in plants. So more or less in some of the animals, they will reproduce through production of bud. Obviously the nature, the type, the structure of these buds will be completely different as compared to those that we discussed in plants. So here the bud is known as gemule, something like these spores, which are internal to the animal. Here animal as in the organism, that is sponges we are talking about, and it is asexually produced. So only the parent cell, okay, when it is ready to reproduce, mature, develop, it will start producing these buds in clusters, in mass, in huge numbers, or aggregation of dormant cells. So they will produce this in collection, in clusters, in masses, and they will remain as inactive cells. Dormant means what? Inactive. Okay, so right now the daughter cells, they are in the inactive stage, they are in the dormant stage. So when there are conditions which are favorable for reproduction, and when the individual parent plant decides for them to start growing as new individuals, then this dormancy, this inactiveness will be broken, and they will become active, and then they will start growing as new independent individual sponges. Okay, so after this bud, there is another stage, intermediate stage, okay, wherein this bud outgrows and they form something known as archaeocytes, and then they are capable of developing into new sponges, new organism, because here the organism we are talking about is sponges. Okay, so the first stage of reproduction is through bud. then the bud develops into arcusites, and the arcusites then develops into, is capable of then developing into a new organism, that is sponges. Another example of asexual reproduction we also saw in the previous slide is of the hydra that you can see on the screen. So this is how they will reproduce through bud. So the bud starts growing. When it is fully matured, it will detach from the parent body, and then it is capable of growing on its own. Fine. So this is about asexual reproduction in animals. So now we are actually beginning with the main topic of the chapter, that is the male reproductive system. Okay. So we begin with the first reproductive system, first type, that is the male, and then in the next part we are going to cover the female reproductive system. So how are we going to go about discussing the topic? First we will discuss in general the major parts of the reproductive system. Then we are going to deep dive into the specific parts, and we are going to study the internal structure of that particular part. Okay, so generally, the main parts of the male reproductive system will consist of the testes, that's the gonad, where the male gametes will develop. Yes. Then the accessory ducts and the glands, which form the main internal and the external genitalia. So you have the internal and the external parts of the male reproductive system. Yes. You have the accessory ducts, and then you have the glands, which will form the internal and the external parts of the male reproductive system. What are they? What are the different subparts, subcategories in it? We are going to see as and when we move forward. Okay, first we are going to focus on the gonads, that's the testes. We are going to see the structure in detail. We are going to see the transverse section, that is the TS of the testes, in detail. Okay, so the beginning part of the chapter consisted of asexual reproduction. So 2 examples which is there in your textbook, and then briefly it is mentioned in the first page, introductory page. Then sexual reproduction starts, and in the sexual reproduction we will first discuss about the male reproductive system, then the female, and then the fertilization events and embryo development, etc., etc. As and when we move to we move ahead the chapters. Okay, so we'll have a look at the diagram of the male reproductive system. So let's just visualize the different parts, and then we are going to take one part at a time. Yes, so we'll begin with the testes over here. So you can see these pair of testes which are located, yeah, on the either side. So these are the testes. They are made up of these, you can see these tubules. Okay, these are the ducts basically, which will carry the sperms, where the sperms will be produced, matured, developed. Okay, and then they will be carried through this connection tube. You can see this connection tube which is present on the testes. They are known as epididymis. So number 1 testes pair will be there, so right and left. Then they are connected to a duct or a tube, which will carry the sperms, the male gametes which are produced in the testes. Yeah, and they will be carried from the epididymis to this duct. Okay, yes, this duct is known as vasa deferens, or you can just call it as the ductus. Yes, vasa differentia or vasa deferens. Then these ducts, even they are a pair in nature, they are then coming into the center, and then they are joined. Okay, they have a common opening into something known as the ejaculatory duct. Okay, so they now open into the ejaculatory duct. So what are they carrying? They are carrying the male gametes. They're carrying the sperms. Okay, so they will enter into this common duct. Yes, and this common ejaculatory duct will open up, has surrounding glands, like you have the seminal vesicle, you have the bulbourethral gland, you have the prostate gland. Okay, these are the glands which will secrete certain hormones, certain substances, certain fluids. which will help in nourishment and giving certain, giving a proper pH and environment to the sperms in this. Okay, so this then ejaculatory duct, then another gland is bulbourethral gland. Yeah, it is marked over here. Then it enters into the main shaft of the penis. Yes. So this is the this part is known as the penis. So you have the beginning part, which is known as the root, and then the main body of the penis. This is the tip of the penis, which is known as glans penis. So root of the penis, body, main body, or you also call as the shaft, S-H-A-F-T. Then the tip of the penis, glans penis, and also the urinary opening, that's the urethra. So in males, the male reproductive system, we call it as urogenital in nature. Okay, what do we mean by urogenital? The urinary system and the ejaculatory fluid, both will come out, both have a common passage. Okay, both will have the common passage. So the sperms will also have a common passage to exit. Also, the urine will also have the common passage, that is through urethra. It will come flow from here only. Now, from where is the urine coming? I will just clear this. From where is the urine coming? Can you see the bladder over here? So this big muscular bag-like structure which you see over here is the male urinary bladder. Here is the place where the urine is collected, and then it is entered and then it is passed out through this. And at the same time, the sperms which are produced in the testes, they are carried to the epididymis, taken up by the vasa differentia, and then emptied into the same shaft, same duct. Okay, so this is peculiar characteristics of male reproductive system. And then you have this ureter, which is descending from the kidneys. They will enter the urine. They will empty the urine in this urinary bladder. Fine. So this is a general understanding different parts of the male reproductive system. So now we will focus on only on the testes where the sperms are produced. So it's very important. In exams, you are most commonly asked about diagrammatic representation of the testes. So you will be drawing this diagram over here. It's there in your textbook. Usually LS they don't ask. This is the longitudinal section. Usually TS is asked. TS means like this, which you can see in this diagram. Okay. So this is a microscopic picture of a TS of testes. Yes. So you can see a magnified version of all the ducts over here. Yeah. Beginning with we will begin with the outer layer. So this is the skin, the sac, the pouch in which the testes are descendant. Okay, so the male testes, which are pairs, which are in pair, they will be carried in a pouch. Okay, a muscular bag-like stuff, a pouch which is known as a scrotal sac. Inside it, the testes are there, protected from any kind of damage, and a proper environment is given to them. Yes, so these are the testes. When we see internally, how do they look like? You see these all tubes, okay, tubules. Yeah, they are known as seminiferous tubule because they produce sperms. Because they produce sperms, that is why the name seminiferous tubule. Uncoiled. Okay, so they are just like this present, so they are not intertwined like this, so they are uncoiled present. And in this, so when you cut this, so this is how the picture looks like. Okay, the TS of the testes, this is how it will look like. And inside there are cells which will actually the place where the sperms will be produced and matured. Okay. Yes, so these sections are known as lobules, and each lobule consists of what? Uncoiled seminiferous tubule. So it's a place. What is the seminiferous tubule? These are the place. It consists of cells which will produce the sperm. Now you can see two labelings over here: interstitial cells, Sertoli cells, and these main cells which you see in the center. These are the spermatogonia. Okay, so this is the place where the sperms are growing, produced, developing. Sertoli cells are like, nurse cells. They are providing nourishment to this growing, developing, reproducing sperms inside our here. Can you tell me how the sperms will reproduce? Not the sperms reproduce, but how this a number of sperms will be increased? How will they undergo cell division? What type of cell division will they do? I will give you example also. You can pause for a minute for a few seconds and just try to answer. So the this is a male gamete we're talking about. Either it will go mitotic division, I give you the one option, and either it will go meiotic division. So what is the right answer? Because it is the male gametes, and we know that gametes, when we are talking about sexual reproduction, gamete formation, when they are increasing the numbers, they will always undergo meiotic division. Yes, so under meiotic division will take place in the seminiferous tubules. Sertoli cells will give nourishment. Interstitial cells will produce hormones. Can you pause for a minute and just recollect what is the male hormone? I just expect you to remember one male hormone. So it is testosterone. Testosterone is the hormone which will facilitate all these processes. Okay. So the hormone involvement is very, very important. Then the matured sperms will be formed, and then they will be migrate to this network. Okay. This network is known as vasa efferentia. So same name like this, just remove the D, they are known as efferentia. They will ascend up in the epididymis, and through this epididymis, they will ascend upward through vasa differentia. These are the blood vessels. So this is your veins and this is your arteries, and then they will go to the duct, vasa differentia, and then finally enter into the main shaft. Another picture like of this seminiferous tubule, a closer look. So these are the membranes that will cover the testicles. Okay, so the outer cover, it has a special name known as tunica albuginea. This is the outer membrane of the testes. These are the testes, actual testes, and inside this you have the seminiferous tubule. Yeah, this is the place where they will come together. So it's like, all of the tributaries of a river, like you have the main river, and then the tributaries and distributaries, they come out and then they join also at some point of time, right? So it's like branches of a tree. So here this place, they will come and then they will form a common region over here, known as reed testes. Then they will descend into the epididymis, and epididymis is vasa differentium. Now having a closer look at the inside picture where the sperms are developing. So in the previous picture we saw the interstitial cells. So this is how the diagrammatic representation, outside the seminiferous tubules will be the interstitial cells. Acha, another name for interstitial cells is Leydig cells. Leydig. Leydig cells. So remember this. What are they doing? They are producing the hormone, male hormone, that is the testosterone. Okay. Then you have the spermatogonia. So I told you this seminiferous tubules. So this is just a cross section of one. You have millions and trillions of these circular structures in this testes. So these are made up of cells. These cells are known as spermatogonia. Very, very important. You have to remember this. What is this spermatogonia? The place of production of sperms. When the sperms are produced, they are divided and increase in numbers. They are sent into the central region for maturation and development. So in the center, you will see the functional and active sperm cells. This is the basement membrane, like an epithelial cell. You have the basement membrane, and the cells of the spermatogonia are arranged on it. And this is the central part where the functional sperms, the fully developed and mature sperms, will be present over here. So it is known as the lumen of the tubule. Clear? So this is all about the transverse section of the seminiferous tubule. You have to know all these labelings. They might give you a diagram and ask you to label, or they might just ask you to draw and also label. So 2 mark ke liye drawing and labeling. 3 mark ke liye if you have to draw also and label also. If only labeling, it might just come for 2 marks. And if it is coming for explanation also, so you will just draw this much and you will explain. So it will come for 3 marks. Okay. So let's just cover everything with the help of points. So the testes are mesodermal in origin. You have humans, they are triploblastic in nature. Remember in 11th standard we discussed organisms can be diploblastic or triploblastic, arising from either 2 germ layers or 3 germ layers. Germ layers are the starting layers, cells from which the organs will develop. All the different organs will develop from either of the 2 or 3 germ layers. So humans are triploblastic in nature. What are the 3 germ layers? Pause for a minute and try to recollect. Ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. Okay, so testes arise from mesoderm. Yes, so that is why they are known as mesodermal in origin. Where are they located? They are located in the abdominal cavity. Okay, that is outside the abdominal cavity. Now, why outside the abdominal cavity? Because the sperms, they require 2 degree less temperature as compared to the body temperature for their proper growth, development, and functioning. They require 2 degrees less, approximately, not exact 2 degrees, but approximately. That is why they are present outside in the lower abdominal cavity, not in the abdominal cavity, as opposed to that of females. Okay, so they are located in a pouch which we just discussed, that is scrotum. Then the duct that carries the sperms from the testes, okay, it is known as vasa efferentia. Efferentia, not differentia. So in the testes, and so you have this testes over here. Here is the epididymis, and epididymis say that vasa differentia comes out, and here you saw the all the tubing. So the junction over here is vasa differentia, carrying sperms from the testes open into the epididymis. So यहाँ पर open होंगे, and then they will go through the vasa differentia. Okay, sperms undergo maturation in the epididymis. So all the sperms which are ready, I mean, they are now formed. So the last maturation stage will happen in the epididymis. Okay, which are located like a cover on the testes. Okay, we also saw the covering of the testes, tunica albuginea. So it is made up of collagen connective tissue. Extra information, it is made up of collagen connective tissue. Remember, we discussed connective tissue are of many types. So elastin, fibrous connective tissue. Then you have collagen fibers, elastin fibers. So here it is mostly of the collagen type. Okay, and then this has multiples. So this tunica albuginea has various multiple testes. Okay, approximately 200 to 300 lobules are present into it, which will have 1 to 4 coiled seminiferous tubule. Okay, so this is just what we saw right now in the previous slide. Each seminiferous tubule is then lined by the germinal epithelial cells. That's the spermatogonia. It's the place where what will happen? Gametogenesis to form the sperms, to form the spermatozoa. Okay, spermatozoa is used when one level of maturation is still remaining. So spermatozoa, and then when they attain the characteristic of motility, then we call them as sperms. Okay, so more or less sometimes we also use this interchangeably. So spermatozoa and sperms. Okay, so finally the seminiferous tubules are the place where the gametogenesis will take place. inside the germinal epithelial cells where the sperms will be formed. Okay, and then you have the Sertoli cells, which will provide what? Nourishment to the developing sperms. And the Leydig cells that we just saw, which is present outside the seminiferous tubule, they will secrete the male hormone, that is the testosterone. So this is all about the histology of testes, very, very important with respect to exam point of view also and understanding point of view also. In the next video, we are going to see about the glands of the male reproductive system, the external genitalia, and we are going to finish with the male reproductive system in the next video, because these two topics and then the topic is completed. Okay, so just have a look at the diagram, and you can make notes. Make a note of anything that you don't understand over here. Okay, so this is the longitudinal look of the testes. Then when you transversely cut it, so this is how the internal seminiferous tubule will look like. Okay, so either we call as spermatogonia or germinal epithelial cells. Okay, with the basement membrane, germinal epithelial cells. Fine. So thank you all. Take care. Please go through the topic thoroughly. Very important. You need to understand each and every point of it, and make a note of any doubt that you have. We will solve the doubts in the live class. So thank you all. Take care. Bye bye. See you in the next video with accessory glands.